Okay, so welcome to the section 2 of our project procurement management knowledge area. And in this section, we're going to be looking at conduct procurement. So how do we go about conducting the procurement after planning? Alright, so without further ado, let's jump into the details. Firstly, an overview of conduct procurement. Conduct procurement is a phase in the project procurement management process that involves obtaining bids, quotations, or proposals from suppliers, as well as awarding contracts. Alright, so in this process, you're going to have to obtain the bids. Alright, the bids. Remember, one of the key concepts we looked at was requests for quotation, the RFQ. Alright, so you're gonna get the quotations from the vendors and the suppliers. You're gonna get your bids, then proposals. Alright, they're gonna have to be applying for the project or for the contract, okay, for this particular project, to supply goods, to supply services, to supply the products, the raw materials, equipment that are required. And then after going through all the bids, the quotations, the proposals, and then of course considering your selection criteria, all right, for this particular project, you can now select and award the contracts to the suppliers or the vendors that's considered to be most ideal, right, or eligible for handling the contract. Okay, so that's basically what the conduct procurement process is about. Now, this phase is critical for ensuring that the project acquires the necessary goods and services from qualified vendors in accordance with the procurement plan. Alright, so the procurement plan that we did initially, you're going to ensure that everything that I outlined within the procurement plan, alright, from the procurement management, you're going to ensure that everything is followed to the letter. Alright, now by the end of this section, you should be able to understand the purpose and importance of the conduct procurement process. You also be able to identify the inputs, the tools and techniques, as well as the outputs of this process. And lastly, you will learn how to acquire the necessary inputs required to fulfill the project requirements. Alright, so that's what we're going to be doing in this particular process, the second in the series. Right, so let's move on. Alright, so what are the objectives of the conduct procurement? The primary objectives of conduct procurement include executing the procurement plan. So here you're going to be executing what have been outlined in the procurement plan. Identify potential suppliers, obtaining bids or proposals from suppliers, and lastly, selecting the most suitable vendor to fulfill the project requirements. Right, so those are the objectives for the conduct procurement process. All right, executing what's in the plan, identifying the most suitable stakeholders and obtaining proposals from them, and then of course selecting the ones that are most likely to fulfill the project requirements. Now let's look at the inputs for this process. Now the first is the procurement management plan. Right, so this is the output from the first section, which is the plan procurement management. So this plan will provide the framework for executing the procurement process as planned. So whatever you're going to be doing, you're going to need to have this plan in focus, all right, so that everything you do aligns with the plan. Procurement documents details specific requirements, terms and conditions of the process. So you're going to be needing all the procurement documents which details all this information, the requirements, terms and conditions. Also, you have the seller proposals. Now after they've submitted the proposals, all right, after you've gotten the proposals, the bids, quotations from the vendors, all right, in response of course to the procurement document, you're now going to have to use this in your decision making as part of your inputs. Also, you have organizational process assets, and of course these are historical information about past procurement and vendor performance. So you're going to have to look into this to understand the performance of the vendors in the past, all right, and what has been done in the previous procurements. Okay. All right, let's look at the tools and techniques involved in the conduct procurement. So firstly, you have the bidder conferences. And these are meetings with potential suppliers to clarify procurement requirements. All right, so after they have after you've identified the potential suppliers, so you're going to have to invite them, okay, as many of them that are available. So this meeting with them is called bidder conference. All right, it's the meeting with the potential suppliers. Here you're going to clarify the procurement requirements and then get to hear from them. They'll make their presentations and all that. Then from here you can get to weigh them and gauge their capacity, their level of preparedness to be able to handle the project. Next, we have proposal evaluation techniques. These are methods for assessing and comparing proposals to make an informed selection. All right, so you're going to have to assess and compare the various proposals from the different suppliers or vendors, and this is going to help you make an informed decision. Independent estimate. This is an assessment of the reasonableness of proposed costs provided by suppliers. So different suppliers are going to bring up their different costs, all right, and then you now do an independent estimation, all right, by assessing the reasonableness or the cost effectiveness of the prices, what they are offering or what they are going to be charging for the project. Expert judgment. This involves experts evaluating the proposals and then selecting the most suitable vendors. Okay, so you have experts within the project team now evaluating the proposal, all right, proposals from the various vendors, and then now selecting which one is the most suitable vendor. All right, moving on. Now, what are the outputs of this conduct procurement process? First, you have selected sellers, who identifies the vendors chosen to fulfill the procurement requirement. So these selected sellers, after going through all the procurement processes, you've now been able to identify the sellers or the vendors or the suppliers who can handle the project and deliver the requirements. Procurement agreement. These are formal documents that define the terms, conditions, and scope of the procurement. Okay. Resource calendars. This indicates when and how resources from selected sellers will be allocated. So this has to do with manpower, okay, from the vendor organizations, So you now have a resource calendar which indicates when those resources will be allocated. All right. Now it's not only limited to manpower; it could simply be anything. All right, equipment, all right, tools, okay, raw materials. So you have a resource calendar that indicates when and how those resources will be allocated and delivered. Alright, so what are the key takeaways from the conduct procurement process? Firstly, conduct procurement involves evaluating proposals, selecting vendors, and establishing formal agreements. So this is the core of the project procurement management. Okay, so here you're going to evaluate the various proposals that have been sent in. Then you now select the most suitable vendor that can handle the supply or the activity or the project, the work that needs to be done based on the selection criteria that has already been established. Okay, and then of course formal agreements, and these agreements, like I mentioned before, has to be in written form, not just word of mouth. Okay, ensuring a fair and competitive process is essential for obtaining the best value for the project. So as a project manager, you want to ensure that the process that you're following in your procurement endeavors, all right, your procurement management, are fair and competitive. It's open, it's objective, it's transparent. All right, if you want to get the best value for your project, you have to ensure this: fairness, transparency, and competitiveness. Make it as competitive as possible. Create a level playing field for everybody, no preferential treatment. That's the only way you can get the best for your project. Effective communication with potential suppliers during the bidder conferences is crucial for clarity on project requirements. So this is the reason you have the bidder conferences, all right, which is part of the techniques that you use in your procurement management. Bidder conferences, meetings with the suppliers or potential suppliers and vendors. So here you're going to communicate clearly with them. Then you're going to get their presentations, all right, understand their perspectives, all right, their processes, their modus operandi. Okay, and this is very, very important to get clarity on the project requirements. Okay, so that's it for this particular section, conduct procurement process. So I hope you got everything. All right, I'll see you in the next section. Cheers.